Hola, bonjour, and hello. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tiki Talka. As you know, I'm Joseph. This is Travis. And here's just a quick clip of what you can expect for us today. Would you still sack Ange and take Frank, or would you keep Ange and try to ride it out one more time?
I would have kept Ange. I think it was a mistake by our board to sack him.
This is a feel-good signing more than like a real smart tactical one.
Do you think it's too big of a jump to go from where he is now to Spurs?
I think if everything works out and everything lines up and the timing's right, he could do a lot of good here.
I don't want to say he's being a prima donna, but he's getting sassy. Becoming a little sassy boy.
Van de Ven and Romero, if we don't instill a certain method or style of play in a manager and stick to him, those two are gone within a year.
If you bring in Poch right now, do you think that's enough to convince Romero and Van de Ven to stay?
If Poch came, can he bring back Harry Kane?
A team trophy with Tottenham would mean the most to him. Dare I say it would mean more than him winning a World Cup for England?
100%. No, not even a red card. That is not a straight red, dude.
Straight
red.
A World Cup compared to what? Like a Carabao Cup with Spurs? No chance. As you guys can see, we actually have another guest on the pod today. This is Cam. So Cam's a Spurs fan, and with the recent sacking of Thomas Frank, we challenged him to come up with the top 5 managers to replace him on a permanent basis. So just to provide a little bit of context, we asked Sam to come up with the top 5 of who he would pick, not who he thinks the board would pick. And he did keep it realistic, and he considers some availability of the managers at the moment. With that being said, Cam, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you became a Spurs fan?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, guys, for bringing me on the pod. My name's Cam. Been a Spurs fan for about 10 years now. Got into it right around 2015, 2016, which was a pretty good year to join. It was probably the peak Poch era for me. Still had a lot of Kane, on Dele, Eriksson. So it's been a fun ride. It's been a lot of heartache, if you will. Outside of last year was a pretty high moment, but obviously we're talking now, so we're at a little bit of a low.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Vertonghen and Toby Alderweireld, that was a fun.
Yeah, it was a good team. Walker, Rose as fullbacks, Vertonghen, Alderweireld, Moussa Dembele, Desk, as I like to call it, as a lot of people called it, which was your Dele, Eriksson, Son, Kane combo right there. So it was it was a good time. It was a fun time to be a Spurs fan.
If only Dele didn't have all of his issues.
I
Man.
know. Yep. Yeah.
My goodness.
I know.
Would you rather have that team then or this team now? Not based on, where they're on the table, but just pound for pound, player for player.
That team, without a question. Again, being biased as a Spurs fan and the fact that Harry Kane is my favorite football player, watching them and all of them were in their prime. Dele around that time was 20, Eriksson was 25, Kane was 23, 24, Son around the same age. It was a fun time to watch that team. It was a lot of good football.
It was a scary Spurs side.
Yeah, how often have you been able to say that in your lifetime?
Often, dude. Not very often. I will say this. When that Champions League final came up, what was that? 18?
It was 18, 19?
Yeah, 18, 19. I told Sam before that, before the semis went, I said that I don't care who it is. As long as we get an English side, we're going to win that whole thing. And then when Spurs actually did get through, I got a little bit scared. I was more scared of Spurs than I was of Ajax.
I figured with a little bit of the Liverpool in this pod right now, I figured that might be a topic that gets brought up.
I have to lightly just talk about this a little
bit. Yeah, of course.
Just a little bit.
It's still not a handball. I'd like that to be on the record that it wasn't a handball.
Dude, if it's not a handball, how else does Mo Salah get his goal in the Champions League final?
I don't know. Who knows?
I love Mo, but he was never going to score in that final.
Yeah.
See, the key to Mo is you got to take him out before he goes to the final. Follow Sergio Ramos and then game over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, we didn't have. Yeah.
Or put Karius in goal.
One
of those two things guaranteed victory.
Okay. Sure. Let's move on, dude. Let's move on. Let's get started.
Let's dive into this, guys. So before we actually get started on the actual ranking, I wanted to ask you a quick question, Cam.
Mm-hmm.
Right or wrong, do you think it was right to sack Thomas Frank?
That can go either way. In my eyes, personally, I think yes. A lot of what the issue that I think now is that we've been in, honestly, probably dating back to ever since we sacked Poch. And That was pretty much what that was the 2019-2020 season. There's just been a lull of rotating through managers. You sack, you immediately go to a serial winner in Jose Mourinho. So, you've gone clearly down a different route where we brought someone in who maybe not a lot of people knew and they were able to work with what they had, but you never had someone like a Mourinho or like a Conte who joined these powerhouse teams and knew how to win. So they went down that route. Clearly, it never worked because you sacked Mourinho after a year and a half to 2 years. Conte was about the same deal. And you see him shift back. You had the Nuno disaster of about 3 or 4 months. You hired Ange, which touchy, sore subject, but it seemed to work. And you kind of kept that with Frank. Frank, I thought, was a bit more of a safe pick. He had Premier League experience. He was able to get, a lot of product out of his players for not having, as high end players as you would at like a big six club. And I think he was a bit out of his depth, which again, another, that could go back and forth on if you think Tottenham's a big club or not. But I think there needed to be a change. At that point, you could see the players were just exhausted. I think he had lost the dressing room a little bit. The biggest thing for me is like, I look at Arteta at Arsenal, or, Klopp when he was at Liverpool, because he went through the same thing. Those first couple of years when he got brought on, it was pretty hard times. I remember Arteta more than I do Klopp. They struggled for those first couple of years as he was there trying to instill the type of football that he wanted his team to play. If we just accept it, this is going to be a painful rebuild. And I still think that's what we need. We've talked about it for, gosh, probably 5 years now, and I don't think I've ever really seen it come to fruition yet. We've done a pretty good job in the past couple of years of moving on a lot of dead wood and a lot of players that I think needed to just move on from Tottenham. But I still think we need to go through a rebuild. And, I wish the next manager that, we end up hiring, hope that the club sticks with them for a little bit longer and, sees it out. Frank had his issues, same thing with Ange. A lot of the things too was an injury crisis, which I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. It may sound biased coming from me, but if you take a step back and look at the injury crisis that our team has had, with Ange last year and with Frank this year, I think it's pretty hard to ignore. Not to say that I think if we had all of our available players that we would be in the top four, but I think it's something to note for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think I actually put it down the other day. I think you guys have 14 people that are either mostly missing due to injury, and then you have Romero out for the 3-game ban. But wow, I think arguably if you had those players back, you would easily be top 6, maybe even top 5,
Yeah.
slotting right
Yeah.
in there. But I mean, you have the likes of Madison, you have the likes of Bentancur, Kudus, Dogi. You've had Pedro Porro out, Kulusevski, Lanky just came back. Richarlison's been in and out. I think that's a valid reason. A lot of people say don't use it as an excuse because every team has injuries, but not every team has it 2 years in a row with this many.
I can shift some of that blame to the board as well for not fully backing a lot of our managers. It's been a hot topic even since when Poch was a manager. I could tell the fan base, obviously myself included, are a bit fed up with it, especially this year. A lot of people thought that a lot of the issues stemmed from Daniel Levy, who was our chairman, who ran the club more like a business than he did a football club. He was in it to make money, which in certain aspects I appreciate because a lot of the issues with some of the bigger clubs is PSR. And it's never been an issue for Tottenham. We've always had the ability to spend, but when it comes to it, we've always chosen to buy some teenager for 40 million rather than a Premier League proven player. It's been a bit frustrating. I'll leave it at that.
Let me ask you this. I know we're kind of getting away from Ange, but I want to get back to Ange. Do you think Ange got the short end of the stick there? His football, his tactics, it was getting exposed almost week in, week out. But like you said, you were in that huge injury crisis. Knowing what you know now, would you still sack Ange and take Frank, or would you keep Ange and just try to ride it out one more time?
Obviously knowing where the team's at now, I think it would have been better to keep him. It's always a bit polarizing because fans outside of Tottenham, you look at it and you're like, okay, he just won you, a European trophy. It was our first trophy since 08, 09. And I want to say the first European trophy in the thousands. It hadn't been since the 90s since we'd last won. But I do think that he drew kind of the short end of the stick. Because I don't think we're in a different spot than we were last year with him. Because you look at it now, we're 16th or 17th. We're only 5 points off the relegation zone. And, the same could have been said last year with Ange. We finished 10th. Fortunately, the three teams last year that got relegated were just unbelievably bad compared to else. So, while we were 17th, I still think we were like, at least double digit points above the relegation spots. So it wasn't much of an issue last year. I think a lot of it too is his football. If it wasn't really working on the pitch, at least he had a way to connect with our players and get something out of them. And you could see it in the Europa League. It was pretty apparent by about February or March as we started to kind of get through the Europa League that it was pretty much tank the Premier League. Nothing was going to happen there. We weren't really going anywhere and just full focus on, the Europa League. And, it ended up working. I understand where the board was coming from because, they want to compete on all fronts. So it's pretty hard to ignore finishing 17th. But where you look at it now, you're in no different position. Your football's worse. The fans aren't happy. It hasn't gotten any better. All that being said, I would have kept Ange. I think it was a mistake by our board to sack him.
Yeah, it's very weird that they think sacking a manager and then not backing a new one is just gonna fix their problems.
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised. It's been a recurring theme for a lot of years. It's something I never get over. I go back to Poch a lot, but you know, after the 2016 2017 season, which was pretty much arguably our best season since I've been a fan. We finished second. I think we finished like 5 points off of Chelsea that year. We finished above Arsenal. And it was the last year at White Hart Lane before we went to Wembley for a year as they were building our stadium now. Poch had even, kind of said it in a lot of his interviews as they were building the stadium. He used the metaphor of, you have this nice big house, but you need nice furniture in that house, clearly referring to, we need new players, we need depth. And then what did the board do after finishing second that season? They didn't buy a single player for the next two windows, in either the summer or the January transfer windows. And, I think that eventually, took its toll and led to his sacking a couple years later.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys watched the overlap at all, but Ange actually went on the podcast. He's supposed to be on next week's episode, but because of what just happened with Thomas Frank, he jumped on this week's to comment on it a little bit.
Oh my God.
And he was calling it like basically the curious case of Spurs. And was talking about like some sort of saying that they have posted on the walls throughout the club, like to dare is to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, but they don't act that way. It's posted everywhere, but they don't show that through their actions. It's all just talk. They're not paying the right wage like the other top clubs are. They're not recruiting the players. He was talking about how they brought in 3 teenagers, and he's like, I was looking at Mbeumo. I was looking at some of these other top signings that were Premier League proven players, and this is what they gave me. So I agree with you I would have kept Ange. I get why they sacked him, but he was playing some entertaining football. Not always the best for you guys, but for the neutral, very entertaining to watch. Much, much better to watch than United last year. It was
I mean,
terrible time for you.
how else do we secure the league in spectacular fashion if it's not for Ange Ball, dude?
It's true. And we'll get into it as we go through the top 5 picks or whatnot. But I will say that a lot of the basis is I've always said I'm okay if the results aren't there. But if you can play attractive attacking football, then I think a lot of people will be happy.
Would you take him back right now versus these potential shortlists?
Ange?
Yep.
Yeah, he was one I thought about.
It's a hot take. I'm giving
Yeah.
give you a quick yellow.
All right, guys. So let's dive into this. We'll go from reverse order. So we'll go 5 to 1. One's obviously going to be the best and your most prized pick. We'll start with 5. So Cam, who do you have in that number 5 slot out of these potential managers that I listed here?
So at number 5, I was saying earlier, this is a bit out of left field, but I have Robbie Keane. For some people who don't know, he's a former Spurs player, arguably a Spurs legend. He had been there for many years. Currently right now, he's the manager at Ferencváros, which is in the Hungarian league. And before that, he coached at Maccabi Tel Aviv, which was the Israeli Premier League. The reason behind this is, kind of what I just, referred to is, if if the style of football is there, if we can play, high press attacking football, I think the fans would enjoy it. And the reason why I've kind of gone for him here is obviously with being a former Spurs player, he knows what the fans want and he obviously knows what the fans demand to see out on the pitch week in and week out. He could level with the fans on that aspect of it, but with the lack of high end managerial experience, is kind of why I've kept him a little bit lower down the list, just because not a lot of people have seen his style of football. He did an interview with someone after one of their games, where he was talking about his style of play and the way he wants his players to set up. So obviously likes to play out of the back, possession football. And he had actually said in an interview once that he told his two center backs, if you guys keep passing back and forth to each other and not forward, I'm going to take you off and I'm not going to play you next week. I don't care if it's in the 5th minute. I don't care if it's in the 85th minute. Or, I want the ball to be going forward. And so, I kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw him on the list, it surprised me because he's a big unknown, right? His only real top flight experience was when he was assistant. I believe it was back at Leeds, and he was assistant when they got relegated, like almost instantly. So his Prem experience isn't the best. His Israeli Premier League season got cut in half due to what's going on over there.
Right.
I have really emphasized that this is a feel-good signing more than like a real smart tactical one. He can prove anyone wrong. He's a young manager. Maybe his tactics are just revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's doing well in Hungarian football, which is not really saying much of anything. For me, he would have been a better interim manager than Tudor. I think Tudor is probably one of the worst interim managers Tottenham could have decided to appoint. Plays the most boring football on the planet. You're probably not going to lose games, but you need points. You need the points bad right now, and he's certainly not going to play football that's going to go and grab you 3 points week in, week out.
Yeah, from what I've read about Tudor, he is, a lot of people have said he's just the Italian version of Frank. I'm curious to see what that is. My only hope or saving grace is that he's had a lot of experience at other clubs where he's come in to do an interim job, and he's done 6 or 7 stints with it. Through all of those, whichever team he has joined, depending on where they're at, he's always kept them up to avoid relegation. So, it's kind of a wild fact that, we're talking about Tottenham right now and you have to entertain the idea of relegation, but, I'm not going to be biased and say there's no way it's going to happen. The way we're playing right now it is 100% likely, or a possibility that we could get relegated.
Sounds more like the Big Sam of Italy.
Yes, yeah. When thinking of interim options, he always gets brought up a little bit.
Yeah, but that's an argument for Tudor, right? That he's been making instant impacts, but long term, maybe not so much. I'm sure he's going to be gunning for that job and trying to secure it. But going back to Keane, obviously, probably most of our viewers know him from his Galaxy days. Good servant for the Galaxy. But I wanted to ask you, do you think it's too big of a jump to go from where he is now to Spurs? Do you think he needs maybe something like let's say if Middlesbrough comes up next year or Ipswich comes up, something like that, or like a
QPR.
Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, something like that before the Spurs jump? Or do you think he can do it? Do you think he'll bust a Michael Carrick and do great?
I'm glad you brought Michael Carrick up because when I thought about this pick, that's kind of where my mind went. A lot of people could say it could be the same situation as us hiring Frank. Is he a bit too out of his depth? Which I certainly think it's possible, but obviously with the string of managers that we've gone through over the past 5 or 6 years, at a certain point, like I think things need to change. You need to accept where you're at, and maybe this is where it's at, giving an outside shot to someone that no one really knows a lot about. With Carrick, like if it were me personally, if I were a Man U fan, the way that I'm watching the football that they're playing right now, I would 100% consider keeping him long term. Because the way they're moving, the attacking football that they're playing, and they're obviously getting results. It's fun to watch them. I'll say that admittedly. It's something I thought about when kind of throwing Keane in here, in hopes that maybe he could kind of get the same thing out of the Spurs side now.
All right. So who do you have on your number 4 spy, Cam?
So number 4, I've got Oliver Glasner. He's currently currently the manager at Crystal Palace, but obviously has come out and said that, he's leaving at the end of the season. The reason I threw him in here, kind of the flip side of Robbie Keane is, he's got quite a bit of managerial experience. Obviously, the big thing is, he has Premier League experience. I've seen what he's done at Crystal Palace over the past couple of years. He's been able to work with what he has and not a lot of investment from the board to go out and sign players. I think it could fit well because something similar is happening at Tottenham, where the investment that you get from the board isn't as much as you have other clubs like Arsenal or Liverpool.
Sure, easy on investment from the board from
I
Liverpool. One
know,
window does
yeah,
not change a lifetime of nothing.
You guys dropped a lot of money this last summer.
Yeah,
yeah.
dude, but we haven't spent money in, 5 years, bro. The last time I can recall us spending
5
big
years.
money would be for
Where's
Ali.
my cards? I'm gonna give you a yellow card.
Ali, dude, Ali was our last time we spent big money. Ali and Van Dijk's the last time we spent big, big money, bro. Tell me
You
who else
didn't
we
need
brought in.
to. Those were the final pieces of the puzzle.
We didn't need to. We needed a 9 after Bobby started fa anyways, that's neither here nor there, dude. That's neither here nor there, man. I wanna say this about Glasner, and I don't know if this is gonna change your opinion, Cam, but
Mhm.
let me just give you the facts. Yeah, he won the FA Cup with Palace last season. Phenomenal, great things. I'm not gonna hold the whole Gahey situation against him, putting my bias aside. This season, he did basically have the same Palace team minus Eze, right? And they just look bad this year. They're not the scary Palace side that we have come accustomed to for the past 2 or 3 years. And just seeing he is now reacting to the board and just kinda I don't wanna say he's being a prima donna, but he's getting sassy. He's becoming a little sassy boy. Do you still think he's a good option to take at a big 6 club like Tottenham? I mean, he's only been at Frankfurt and Crystal Palace, which aren't big clubs by any stretch of the imagination. Do you think the lights might get too big and he just starts to crack with all the pressure that does come with a big 6 job, being in a real big London environment, not just on the outskirts of it all?
It's a good point. It's something I thought about as well too. They haven't been playing that great of football, and to your point, he's been pretty blunt in his interviews with his opinions on the board and everything else with the whole Gahey situation. It's something I had noted where I could see it being a potential issue because they sold Gahey, they sold Elise, they sold Etse, and you didn't really see any investment after that. You never really replaced those top end players. They almost got rid of Mateta in January as well. So yes, it's something I thought about with a lot of my picks. I don't really have a lot of names where the manager hasn't been at bigger clubs, comparatively speaking. I personally, just based on prior experience with other managers, is trying to go after these big names. Um, it usually doesn't end up working well. And so, I think we need to, as a club, stick to eyeing managers who are, I don't want to say lower end or middle of the pack, but I don't see us going out and trying to sign Xabi Alonso or a Xavi. And so it's, I think we need to find our middle ground and find, what kind of manager we want and stick with them and back them as we move forward.
Yeah, I think actually Glasner's a good shout. Joe, you were saying about Frankfurt. I think Frankfurt's a pretty big club, especially, when you look at Germany. I think they're probably the Spurs of Germany, maybe even bigger. So I think he's done pretty well. And I think it's pretty interesting because if you take a look at the last few months, you could see how quickly things change. This guy was being linked to the United job. At one point, he was probably top 1 or 2 picks for us at United was to bring him in because he could do fluid styles like 3 at the back, 4 at the back. But like Joey was talking about, the form recently has just deteriorated, and now I don't even know if he's on the short list anymore for United. So that just goes to show how quickly things can change in football. But I do think, winning the FA Cup and Community Shield with Palace is a huge feat, especially when you lose players every year. Think about it. Every transfer window, he's losing his best player. He lost to Olise, lost Eze, now Gahey. I understand why he's frustrated, and look at who they replaced him with. One of your boys, right? They got Brennan Johnson, but it's not the same. Who actually really realistically expected Palace to still be that powerhouse after getting rid of their best players? So, all right. So Cam, who you got in the number 3 spot?
Okay, so number 3, I've gone with Roberto De Zerbi, former Brighton manager. So again, speaking to the Premier League experience, but most recently was the manager at Olympique Marseille in Ligue 1, but obviously him and Marseille mutually agreed to part ways. Again, with a lot of these picks, he's Premier League proven, but when he was at Brighton, I think it in terms is pretty on par with where Tottenham's at. He was able to take, with what he had at Brighton, um, and get the most out of his players, most notably Matoma, who I think not our topic today, but I definitely think Tottenham should look at signing him. But his tactics are high press, man-to-man marking, play on the front foot, get the ball forward, possession-based football. And I think that's what Tottenham needs. And so that's kind of why I have him here at number 3.
Well, Travis, do you want to go first, or should I go?
Sure. De Zerbi's another. He was somebody that I have been looking at. And I think he's pretty good tactically. And if you see the way that Pep talks about him, he has a lot of praises for De Zerbi and his tactical
He called him one of the most
philosophy in his brain.
influential managers of this century, which I mean, okay, okay. I don't know about that, but yeah.
It's tough when people come out of Brighton because you don't know if it's the Brighton recruitment model or if it is the actual coaches because they've had how many hits in a row now of managers and players. So it is a little bit hard to distinguish if it's the recruitment process or not. But I think De Zerbi's done pretty well. He's done pretty good with Marseille as well. Yes, he got battered by PSG the other day. However, Marseille haven't been relevant in a long time, and he brought them back up to challenging for the titles.
With notable good guy Mason Greenwood leading the front.
If I had to say anything negative about De Zerbi, it's just the falling out with the board. Maybe it's an Italian thing because Conte does the same, but after a while, it just does seem like he falls out with the board, or maybe he's just not backed in the way that he would prefer. I think it would be a good move for both parties, for both him and for you.
I'll follow up on what you said. Like it's something I noted as well. He can be a little bit of a hothead. It's the reason why Marseille didn't work out. He had issues with both the players and the board. Um, and eventually that's why it led to him getting sacked. With the current players that we have, I just don't know how well it would work. As far as like an immediate impact goes, it would probably take, you know, at least half a season or, a couple months to really get what he wants to see out of the players that are currently at Tottenham.
I liked De Zerbi when Liverpool was looking for a manager. He was on my short list of top targets for a little bit. The way he carries himself, to Travis' point, Italian managers do kind of have this reputation of being very volatile, but he seems to be an extra special case of losing your top all the time. They lost 1-0 to Fulham, I think it was in 2023, and he blamed having to go to a referee meeting midweek as the reason why they lost. Like, okay, man, like you're kind of just looking for anything. And from what I noticed, especially at Brighton and at Marseille this year, as soon as he encounters any kind of small bump in the road that deviates his plan even a little bit for something he doesn't account for, total head loss. I look at this season, they were looking like to be probably the best team in Europe in the Champions League. They get smacked by Liverpool. Then they get smacked by just seems like any single team they came up against. They get eliminated from the Champions League. They get dominated by PSG 5-0, and he's done. He wants out. He immediately wanted out. From what I read, I didn't see that Marseille's board was over him. He was done with Marseille, which is weird because he got a lot of backing from them. He wanted Greenwood. No one wanted Greenwood. He wanted him so bad. As the board had any right to trust him, they got second place, 23-24, their highest league finish in an awful long time, trying to put them back to where they belong. This just strikes me as a guy who, even more so than Glasner, if the lights are too bright, he's going to crack and it's going to be big. It's not going to be very pretty. He just can't seem to keep his head, on his shoulders, man. I just don't know what it is. He seems to want to blame everyone and anyone except his own tactics with man selection once things start, falling off. That's my take on him. I do think he does play exciting football again. He's very fun to watch whenever he was at Brighton. Loved watching them, hated playing against them. But personally, I would have Glasner over De Zerbi, to be honest with you. That's my humble opinion.
Well, about them being volatile, Joey, maybe the Italians are passionate. Okay? They're passionate.
They are passionate, yeah.
But hey, the only calm one is Don Carlo, right?
I can't do the eyebrow raise. But yeah.
He keeps his calm and composure. All right, so let's move on to number 2. I'm curious to see who you have here, Cam.
I thought about this one for a while. I was going back and forth between 1 and 2. And so at number 2, I've put Mauricio Pochettino. So obviously, former Spurs manager, we've talked about him quite a bit already. This one was trying to think with my head rather than my heart. I think the fan base would love to have him back. I'm glad that he got other managerial experience. The style of play that he had, possession based, attacking football, he focuses a lot on balls over the top, which with the players we have, especially like Alderweireld at the time when he was at the club, was the epitome of this. And I still don't think there's a better center back I've seen that has the ability to do that, to ping a ball over the top from, their half to most times it was Son darting in behind the opposition's back line. And, it led to a lot of goals and it was fun. I think currently we have a perfect setup for that. Not so much Van de Ven. He's the guy who will kind of take the ball and find open space, obviously with the speed that he has. But Romero, his passing, at least from what I've seen throughout the Premier League compared to other center backs, he obviously wants to get forward. He looks for those balls over the top. He looks to find those gaps. And I think it sets up perfectly for the way that he wants to play. We talked about how good Spurs were when he was the manager, but how much of that was masked by the fact of the big four that they had with Dele, Son, Kane, Eriksson. Pretty much everything went through them. When you have those four like that compared to what we have now, it makes me question how well it would work. He's said in interviews too, Tottenham still holds like a special place in his heart. If he were to come back to a club that he was recently at or had previously managed, it would be Tottenham. I think if everything works out and everything lines up and the timing's right, he could do a lot of good here.
Joey, I know you're bursting at the seams here to talk about Podge, so I will let you go first on this one.
I'm gonna pretend that he hasn't said what he said about the national team and the World Cup right now. Honestly, for me, I would have Poch as my number one. If I was a Spurs fan, I'd want Poch to come back as soon as humanly possible. He oversaw the greatest period of success in the modern era, right? Second place finish, took him to a Champions League final. The comeback against that Ajax side who had Frankie de Jong, Matthias de Ligt, like, it was a good team. They had to really, really compete, and they did it. And it's just unfortunate they came against probably the best Liverpool team I've ever seen. An English side was not going to beat that Liverpool side. It was never, ever going to happen. And it's very unfortunate that 4 months or so after that loss, bad run of form starts happening, and they sack him. They get rid of him as soon as any kind of trouble came, and it just didn't make any sense to me. He moves on to PSG. He wins 2 trophies there right away. But again, it's Liga. Anyone can do that. He goes to Chelsea, and Chelsea is just that revolving door of managers as it is. He's over here in the U.S. Honestly, I don't see him being the U.S. manager for very long. If this World Cup goes how I think it's going to go, he's probably going to lose that job. I don't think he's a national team manager, but if he has guys every single week and he just keeps telling them this is how we play, this is our philosophy, Poch is a good manager. He's a very good manager. You don't go to Spurs to PSG by, being a dummy. You can't just do that. This would be a very good feel-good signing. I think you get new manager bounce instantaneously and you'd get it for a long, long time. Fans would buy right back into it. I think the board would be much more willing to back Poch versus any new manager that they want to bring in. I think if you're going to bring people in and you want them to be backed by the board, it'd be Keane or Poch. But if you seriously want to get back to the Spurs that you know that you can be, you want Poch to be back right away.
Not the answer I was expecting, man, to be honest.
I
Not
told you.
at all.
What
What happened?
national team. I'm not going to bring that up.
Oh, okay. So here's my take. Obviously, like I said, feel good factor. I struggle with the whole concept of going back to your ex. It's tough. I think he's done amazing when he was at Spurs, but I'm trying to look at this objectively and not be jaded by those comments a couple weeks ago. But it's hard, man. I don't know what it is, because I remember telling Joey when he became the national team manager, I'm a big Poch fan, huge. However, if you look at his time at Chelsea, although it's Chelsea and they've been like a roller coaster up and down, didn't last very long there. And although I think his last 5 or 6 games at Chelsea has started to string results together, they got rid of him. You look at the United job, passed him up not once, but twice. You look at PSG, who's not going to take the league at PSG? I could take the league at PSG, right? So nothing impressive per se there. They let him go after, a year and a half?
That's another big issue, Travis, not to cut you off, but in his last 3 jobs, he's been terminated from all of them, and 2 of them have lasted less than a year.
Yeah, I think, and that's why I'm saying try and look at this objectively. Then he goes to the men's national team job, and I'm going to take something that you said to me the other day, Joey. which player or players has he actually improved for this U.S. men's national team? I'm struggling to think of a single one. So when you combined all of that, yes, he did a great job on his first go around with Spurs. But what if that was just the players? I mean, you guys had some badass players at that time, and Viral, probably my favorite one of that era. At Kyle Walker back there, you had Hugo Lloris, so you guys were stacked. So I don't know if it was so much Poch now. Now it's making me question it. So couple that on top of the comments he made, I don't see the man management. I think that was a criticism of his at PSG as well, is man managing the egos. And if Spurs are trying to become a realistic title challenging team and paying higher wages, it's going to come with bigger egos. And I don't know if Poch can manage those bigger egos. I don't think he's proven yet that he can. Again, I'm even shocked at what I'm saying now because I was a huge Poch fan, but I don't know. Something's doesn't smell right.
Cam, do you think he could handle the anomaly that is for Carlson?
Personally, I just think we need to sell him. So hopefully he doesn't have to deal with him. No, it's I see all your points because it's all stuff I've thought about before too. I try and go back and I'm like, looking at the team that he had, I think any inconsistencies or maybe lack of tactics was masked a little bit because of the players that he had, especially in the attacking third, is when you have two world-class players, albeit you can call me biased, hands down the best striker in the world, and Harry Kane, just all around.
It's a little biased.
Oh, I mean, all
I don't
around.
know.
Oh, you say all around,
We could
right?
spend a
He's probably the
whole
best
nother hour.
all around 9.
I could spend a whole nother hour going back and forth about that hot take if that's what you want to call it, but no, it's hard to ignore. And not to say that, you don't have some better players at, Tottenham now, but, it's, you definitely do not have, the level of talent or world-class players that he did back then. The ones that honestly most notably come to mind, at least in the team right now, are probably more so our back line, our back four, more than any of our attacking players. Pedro Porro, Adogi, Van de Ven, Romero. I think, especially Van de Ven and Romero, if we don't instill a certain method or style of play in a manager and stick to him, those two players specifically are gone within a year. There's already been talks about apparently Romero is looking to leave this summer after just signing, a contract extension, being named, club captain, that he's already looking, to go out the door. Atletico Madrid is the biggest one that's been mentioned. I do think he could go play for a lot of other teams. I do think he could go play for a Madrid or a Real Madrid or a Barcelona. I could see Van de Ven. Honestly, you might as well just hold that up because I was about to.
That's your second yellow, dude. You're lucky I
I
forgot to
know
send you off.
I was going to lead in saying that I think Van de Ven, if he were to leave, he could slot into any team in the world. You look at him, the dude's 22, 23. I don't know if they've kept stats this year yet, but I know last year he did record the fastest pace. And that's saying something because I know a lot of people come to mind as like Adama Traore. But to have that guy as a back line to say, hey, let's shove everyone forward, and you could sit him back there, and no matter what, he's going to go and chase down any player. We're not even mentioning the fact that I think he's our joint top scorer right now, which is saying something because he's a center back. It's something I'd be curious to see how Poch, if were we to bring him in, how he would operate with the players he has now and how his system and style of play would look.
If you bring in Poch right now, do you think that's enough to convince Romero and Van de Ven to stay? Or do they need more backing from the board?
I was going to say you would have to bring him in almost immediately. I don't think it's going to happen until after the World Cup. I want to say it goes almost to the end of July. And by that time, you've got 2 or 3 weeks before, the Premier League season starts.
However, that's if US makes it all the way, which I think we all know that's not going to happen. He'll get knocked out early June.
If that happens when he's able to get through the door and he can start to show the players the style of football that he wants to play, and if the board does back him with certain players that he wants, I think it could be a Band-Aid for right now for the likes of like Van de Ven and Romero to stay. But if we go through this whole cycle and process again come January, February of next year, and we're debating sacking him already, then I think without a doubt that they're gone. And I can't necessarily blame players like that. In the case of Romero, one of the pieces of why he stayed is they told him, we're going to get a manager, we're going to play this specific style of football, we're going to sign some players, we're going to compete. And then when you just don't do any of that, rightfully so, you're annoyed. It gets harder to ignore when clubs like Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool, Arsenal, when they come knocking, it's hard to ignore.
Saying that about Arsenal too has to just be mind-boggling too, dude. And, your direct rival will be coming.
It's yet to happen where I've had a player that has gone from us and went straight to them. Chelsea's on a very similar level with that. I didn't know what to think when I saw Pochettino go to Chelsea, but it is what it is.
Yeah, last thing I'll say on Poch is that he is definitely the fan favorite. I think most Spurs fans do have him as their number one, obviously because of what's happened in the past. Personally, I don't think he has any interest in staying the men's national team for the U.S. I don't think he has any intention of keeping that job after the World Cup. I think he's always known it's just been just this, and that's about it. To kind of bring his stock and relevancy back up in the game, I do see him going back into full-time day-to-day management. I did want to ask you, before we move on to the number one pick, real quick, do you think if Poch came, can he bring back Harry Kane? And the reason I ask that is because, obviously, from what I know of, Kane hasn't extended anything at Bayern. I know he's been in talks with it, but the goal-scoring record's there. Do you see it in the twilight of his career coming back if Poch comes?
I'm glad you brought it up. Yes, without a doubt. I said immediately once we sold Harry Kane that I always knew, without a doubt, at one point later on in his career, he would come back. Growing up through the academy, being a Spurs player through and through, obviously there's a lot of love for the club there, and the connection there with the club and the fan base. But also to your point, the goal scoring record. I think it's hard for him to ignore. I get it. I get why he left. Without being biased, again, I'm happy he left. I think for a player of his caliber, had he stayed, had he not won any trophies, to get to the end of his career and only have really personal records and not anything with a team, that, I think it would have, been one of, one of life's greatest what ifs had he moved to a different club. So, I'm glad he went to Bayern. He's got his trophies, he's doing unbelievable there, which I'm not shocked at. You could give him 5-year-olds and he could probably still score 50 goals in a season for teammates. So I don't think he immediately comes back. If Pochettino stays there for a couple of years, I think Kane maybe comes back for a year or two. I know it's hard for him to ignore that Premier League goal scoring record of Alan Shearer, and I think if he were to come back for a couple of years, it wouldn't be hard for him to break it. And I know that's kind of what he's gunning for, because outside of that, everything else that he has, he's England's, top goal scorer of all time. Him and Son have records. I know, like, they broke the most goal contributions between two players on a single team, which was held for quite a while. But outside of the goal scoring record, I also do think a team trophy with Tottenham would mean the most to him. Dare I say it would mean more than him winning a World Cup for England? Maybe another hot take, but
Don't worry, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So we got no worries there.
But I hear that, dude. I mean, I might have to agree with you on that, honestly, Cam. Like,
No.
no, for real, dude. I mean, this England side is just, it's the
World
same
Cup
problem we had with
versus
the golden generation. They don't play well together. They don't do it at all. I mean, how many managers have they cycled through? Now they're on Tuchel, which I've said Tuchel is a great tournament manager.
Mhm.
But Jude's not looking good. Trent is perpetually hurt. You're going to rely on Kane and Rashford to kind of do the majority of your goal scoring. And we know Rashford. Rashford can just be on fire for 2 weeks and then disappear for 2 months. And Kane, the biggest knocks against him, unfortunately, is that he kind of disappears when the lights are getting really bright. It's just what happened. Look at the Champions League final. That was their first real chance. They could have competed. They were competing in the league against Liverpool, but they didn't have a sniff at that game, dude.
Yeah, but are you saying, Joey, that you think if England won a World Cup and then he went back to Spurs and won a trophy with Spurs, you think that Spurs trophy would be worth more to him than The World
100%.
Cup?
I mean, think about
No.
he basically suffered at Spurs, dude. He suffered and grinded just to get the respect to be known as the best number 9 in the world, right? And then to also be not even a red card. That is not a straight
Wow.
red, dude. That's not a straight.
Complete
red.
red.
A World Cup compared to what? Like a Carabao Cup with Spurs? No chance.
We're assuming that they're gonna win a World Cup, dude. I'm assuming that they're not gonna win a
Yeah.
World Cup.
No.
They're
I'm not
not
saying
winning
that.
a World Cup.
I'm not saying they're going to win. I'm saying hypothetically, if he won both of those trophies, which one would be near and dear to his heart?
Honestly,
I get
I
they
If he
both
were to
would,
pick,
but come on. If
I
he were
think
to
winning a
pick,
trophy with Spurs, dude. For real, man. I mean, he suffered at Spurs. He had to leave to win a trophy. The only knock against Kane was, dude, don't even put me in the book, bro. Get out of here. The only knock against Kane at Spurs is that he never was going to win anything. That's why he left. I think if he left, he's won trophies now. He comes back. They win FA Cup, Carabao. You're telling me that doesn't mean anything to you?
I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything.
That
but
has to mean a lot
to
to
be
you,
on
dude.
a
And I think
World
that
Cup
means more
level,
than a World Cup. I
Joey,
generally do.
when's the last time England won anything?
yeah.
60s. You're telling me that
But
is
the qualifiers.
there's no way that is going to be. They haven't won Euros. They haven't won Nations League. They haven't won jack shit. You're going to tell me that a trophy with Spurs is going to be on that level. I get it's going to be close to them. I'm not saying it's not. It's going to be near and dear.
Yes, I do. I genuinely do, bro. I'm so
Man.
serious. I'm on your side, bro. I'm on your side on this. If you're not on my side, holy shit. Am I devastated right now?
Maybe it's because I have more faith that Spurs can win something than England can win the World Cup. Maybe that's what it is.
I like that way of thinking.
Damn it, fuck. It's just me on my island.
But I'm still with you, Joey.
Yes, let's go.
Yeah. I'll say that to Travis, but I can't ignore it.
That's for you
I'm
too.
with thank you.
I gave him 2 yellows. I didn't send him off. You can't do that, bro.
Italian ref, don't forget. I'm passionate. All right, guys. So before we head to the number 1, there's a lot of big names still up here. You got Xavi and Xavi, got Nagelsmann, Edin Terzic, your boy Igor. Tell me, who you got out of these fantastic picks up here? Who do you have as your number 1 that can save Spurs and bring them back to not being Spursy?
Yeah, out of all of these that are still on there, the number 1 pick that I went with is Marco Silva. Some people might laugh at the fact of the managers that you have up there, and I have Marco Silva there at number 1. But currently the manager at Fulham, he's been there for, I want to say 4 or 5 years now. The reason that I've kind of gone at him with number 1 is the way that he sets his team up and the way he plays. I think it is best suited for the team that we have now. Obviously, we need to bring in players, but I don't think it's as much as you would need if you went for some of these other managers. And the biggest key to his system, obviously, is his center backs. Namely, the one he has right now is Calvin Bassey, who's their left center back. He asks a lot of him when he picks up the ball to drive into space. And what that kind of does is it drags a lot of the opposition towards him, which opens up space, obviously, for like your midfield, but also he asks his fullbacks to get forward. It was pretty easy to figure us out. It was, let's kick it to the wingers, I'll kick it back to the fullbacks, and you pretty much just dart down a wing and you whip across in. There's not a lot of play through the middle, and I think that's one thing that Marco Silva focuses on a lot. Like, his style of play is he likes to overload a lot of one side of the field. And a lot of times what you see is, one, you still have the fullbacks getting forward, which I think is perfect. A lot of what he does is he asks his midfielders to also get forward. And I think that's a problem that I've seen recently over the past year that we don't do a good job of, is you have a lot of our sixes who kind of just sit in the middle and don't really move. What he asks a lot is, if you're going to play a ball out to the wing, continue making that run, because that drags the back line with them. You have the other 6, or you have the striker who drops in, and it creates a lot of these pocket of spaces. And he's also able to get, a lot out of the players that he has. Hasn't seen a ton of investment from the board. I want to say, like, last year, their club record signing was Emile Smith-Rowe from Arsenal, and that was about the only big name that they signed. I know they signed Kevin in the summer this year, who was from Shakhtar, which I think is actually a really good player.
Yeah, he's pretty solid.
Watching him play. But, he knows what to get out of his team. Again, attacking, possession style football, kind of, pressing, man-to-man marking. And yes, this can lead to a lot of counterattacks. But again, I think the big overarching theme to this discussions that we've had is that, for me at least, and I I think I could speak for our fan base as well, or for a majority, is if the results aren't there, that's fine. But if the style of play is there, if you're playing attacking football and it's fun to watch, then I think that makes a lot of people happy. If I were a fan and I lived in London when I went to the games and I watched us hoof the ball back and forth and just get battered, I'd be like, okay, well, why did I just spend £100 on a ticket? I should have just stayed home. If they lose, but you're getting a 4-3 or 3-2, the players tried and they're obviously showing their effort and they're showing their passion. Um, then I think that makes up for a lot of things.
This one surprised me. I honestly thought you might have gone for Areola at Bournemouth, just given how well he's developed the players that he has. He doesn't really get a lot of investment. And they just got rid of Housen, they got rid of Semio, they got rid of Kirkes. They're still relatively competing. Warmouth, they're not going to be challenging for Champions League, but they are competing. I really like the shout of Marco Silva, and specific. I really like it because of two players. First one is Ryan Sessegnon, who for as long as I've been following football, this guy, Sessegnon's been talked about to be the next great left winger that England was supposed to have. Never panned out for him, but now he's a pretty decent wingback. Sessegnon's good. The one that really impresses me is Harry Wilson. Former Liverpool guy. He goes to Bournemouth, kind of develops a little bit. He's not really a world beater. As soon as he gets to Fulham, it's like, where has this kid been in the Premier League? He seems to score at will in any game he plays in. He plays out wide, but like you're just saying, he comes in and he tries to command the game from the middle of the field. So his win percentage is kind of scary to me. He wins a little under half of his games, but like you're saying, you don't care if you win every single game. You're trying to build to that level. And he
Mhm.
does play very exciting football. You're not going to see him set up to put 10 people behind the ball. He's never, ever going to do that. He's going to try to play you off the park. He's going to try to play. He wants to win. So I don't really have a lot of negatives. It's as a question mark for me in terms of how can he handle it. He did get fired from Everton. That was his last, I guess, big six club job that he had. That was his only one. But he's been at Fulham for a while. They've
Make
never
sure I
really.
heard that right. Did a Liverpool fan just say Everton's a Big Six club?
Oh, that's why I said if you consider them a big six club.
And who would that be? Just Everton?
Well, I don't want to speak for Toffees. I just want them. I like them to be happy. It's the friendly derby, dude. You know what I mean?
And I thought of Areola as well. Tried to keep it realistic. And Areola, we were in for him last summer. He was on the short list with Frank, and obviously ended up staying at Bournemouth. I don't think he would leave with the way that he still has Bournemouth playing, even after losing Semenyo, Kirkes, Housen. He's still getting a lot out of his players. And if I'm him, I don't know why I would be leaving that to come to us, which is kind of why I left him off the list. If I'm him, I don't know why he would want to leave and come to something that's worse.
A risk, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Say you get Silva, right? Your number one choice. Is there anyone you want him to bring from Fulham over to?
Harry Wilson, without a doubt. That dude this year has been unreal. His left foot it's something else. And I think that's a lot of what we need. We need a couple of wingers in our squad that aren't afraid to dribble at someone and take on their man and try and get past them. The last person we had to do that was Son. Once we got rid of him so far this year, you just really haven't seen it. Brennan Johnson, he has the pace, he's got the speed, but he never took anyone on. His biggest thing was trying to pretty much just run down the sideline and either kick in a cross or pretty much be at the back post for a tap in was his style of play. The closest thing that we've got to it, I think, is Wilson Odebear, who we signed last year from Burnley. He is, he's the first player I've seen who actually will pretty much drive at their man and try and get by them. Unfortunately, he just tore his ACL last week, so you can add him to the injury list.
Perfect timing.
And I can't go without saying Mohamed Kudus, who we got from West Ham, who I think was arguably the signing of the summer. He has absolutely no fear taking someone on. And when he's been healthy, he's been great. He's been an automatic starter. He won't lose a spot to anyone else. And I think he's added, a different style of play to our team that we've been missing for a while.
Yeah, I think Silva's a good shout. I think he's kind of goes under the radar for a lot of people. But looking at some of the short list, not just the 5 that you picked, but even some of the people that are still left, like I'll throw Areola in there. It's funny because it looks like Man U and Spurs are shopping in the same window.
Yep.
And I don't know how to think about that. Like, am I looking at it like, oh man, we're shopping in the same market as Spurs? Or is like Spurs is finally going for the same managers that some of these other traditional Big Six clubs are going for, right? So yeah,
Humble
but
yourself, United. Humble
uh,
yourself.
it,
You
that's what
guys
I'm
are shopping in a lower market right now.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe that's where United are at right now. So it's interesting. I think Silva, could be a good number one. I think I'd agree with Joey on that as far as putting Areola there, because talking about having all your starters just stripped from you, right? Especially your back line and just still being able to maintain their level of performance. I would have put him in there, but and I do think it's realistic. I think you guys could get him. I think it is a Spurs is a stepping stone for him compared to where he's at right now in Bournemouth. And no disrespect to any Bournemouth fans that are watching, but I do Spurs are a bigger club.
And I
They
mean,
are.
much to your point too, Cam, like Travis said, Silva definitely goes under the radar. And I personally believe he gets players to kind of play beyond their level. They brought in old Traore and he's still pretty good. Like he's kind of solid. He developed Wilson. I'm giving a lot of credit in developing this version of Harry Wilson, man. Where did this guy come from? And he's just getting to play at a big six kind of level. Again, I just talked about Session. He finally figured out how to make Session actually be a regular starter and contribute to the team week in, week out. It's not a bad shout. I think it's probably the better shout than Areola. I don't know if Bournemouth's really his cat. He just doesn't really seem very interested to go anywhere right now. Where Silva, he does have that enterprise, it seems like, to want to, do bigger and better things. And Spurs is the next good step, and there's a lot of great pieces there, and a lot of young guys that he can just kind of mold to be who he wants them to be. And who knows? Now he has some more money to play with. We can see the real system fully come out and not just have to be a limited version of it.
Yeah, I was also wondering if I don't know how realistic it would be, but Nagelsmann, do you think he would consider? Because after the World Cup, he might be done being the German manager coach. So Spurs might, if they can pull it off, I think that would be a good coup.
Yeah, no, he was in there as well as someone I thought about, because he was linked with us, I think, after, he had gotten sacked at Bayern until eventually he went and took up the Germany national team. It's not something I would hate, if we went out and signed him, but if you look at where Tottenham's at right now, it's hard for me to envision a lot of these managers wanting to come here just with everything that's going on. And so, mainly for that and some other reasons, that's why I don't think I would see the likes of Nagelsmann coming here. Xabi Alonso, I think he's just waiting for Liverpool. Even though I think Slot's doing a great job, I think you guys are being way too impatient with him, but
That's not me. I'm trying to convince Joey to keep Slot.
where is it? Yeah, you get that red card. Yep.
Oh, dude.
Hey, I'm the only
Egregious
one
things
without a
I'm
card.
hearing right now.
This year, sure, no, but the season that you guys had last year, one, to think that it was sustainable, but, to think that, he's just like that the world is ending because you guys are going through a little bit of a rough patches. I don't know.
Queen's over
Habibi,
there.
we've won 6 games since September.
Yeah, well, we haven't won 2026 yet,
All
so
right.
it could it,
All
could-
right.
it could be
All right.
it could be worse.
All right. That's true.
It could be
That's true.
worse.
That's very fair. Slot is slot, dude. And I don't even want to get into all of that. But I do want to say your point on Chabi. I kind of want to fight against that because he was in Spain. He was bouncing around in pretty good academies. For all we know, he could have just gone right into Bayern, right? They were thinking of him over Company for a while, but he did go to a Leverkusen who was fighting relegation. They were about to get relegated, and he said, "Nope, no, thank you." Kept them afloat. Then went invincible in the league. So I don't think it's that far of a stretch to say someone like Chabi or someone of that caliber wouldn't want to come here. This is a challenge, right? Do you want to prove yourself to be a truly elite manager? Come to this team, keep them afloat, bring him into the top 6, give him European football. You don't have to repeat the success that Chabi may have had at Leverkusen, but if you really want to prove yourself, this is where you do it. And I think any young manager who truly believes in their abilities, like say we get another psycho like Jose Mourinho to come along, this is a job that he wants. He really wants a job like this. He wants to prove everyone wrong that, no, I am the next great manager. I'm the person that everyone's going to want. We are doing a lot of ripping on Tottenham, but I don't think it's as an unattractive job as we're probably making it out to be. There's still British money. It's still a big 6 club. If you have a truly perfect vision and you're not willing to let the board kind of move you around, It's exciting. I think it's still an exciting job. You have great pieces there.
Yeah, it's like in the case of Xabi, I see your point, and it's a good shout. Like I said, I thought about him, but with where he was at Leverkusen, obviously the fallout at Real Madrid, I think personally he's kind of, I don't want to say done with not experimenting, but I guess a lower end team, if you will. It's on similar lines of what I talked about with one of my manager choices in Robbie Keane with being a former player. Like I think Alonso is holding out for that Liverpool job if Liverpool decides to make some rash decisions in sack slot, but we'll see. The same thing gets brought up if he goes there. I think the biggest issue at Real Madrid was just dealing with egos and the board. I think that's mainly why Xabi left. You had Mbappe and Vinicius that were just, I don't know. I have some very strong opinions on those two players, but well, I get it. But then you think, like, would he have to deal with the same thing at Liverpool? It's probably along similar lines of what Slot had to deal with Salah when he was publicly coming out and saying, like, look, I don't know why you're starting me. This is ridiculous. I'm a world-class player. You deserve to play me. The ego's there. It's something you always kind of have to talk about whenever you move to, some of these bigger clubs and you get these star players, because obviously it starts to become more of a factor.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Joey. I think Spurs is actually a pretty good club to go for. I mean, not only are they, considered a traditional top six now, their facilities, some of the best training facilities in the world, some of the
World
one of
class.
arguably top two stadiums in the world. They're financially way better off than United and other clubs like that. They're a powerhouse. It's just, are they going to spend that money? And now that Levy is out, I think the floodgates are open. I do think they are going to start changing things going forwards. Yeah, I definitely agree that if you're an up and coming coach, or if you're somebody that wants to do like a Real Madrid or Barca one day, I think they'll still see Spurs as a stepping stone. But for the time that you guys have that manager, will be pretty good for you. All right, guys. Well, that's all we have time for today. Cam, thanks again for coming on and giving us your opinions on Spurs.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll see
Appreciate
you
you guys
again.
having me.
If
Oh,
they
yeah,
keep
for
sacking
sure.
people at the rate that they are, we'll see you back in
Yeah,
I'll
you
see
guys,
you
you
real
guys
soon.
might
8
see me in
months.
about, yeah, you'll see me, just give it about a year. We'll be talking the same thing.
Went wrong. Igor Tudor, sacks.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Gosh,
Boy.
yeah. I don't even think he was in contention for you, Mr. Tudor, huh?
No, no, no. I think he's fine to do an interim job. He's got the first shot at impressing everyone for the permanent job, but my fingers are crossed that we do not look at him for the permanent job moving
For sure.
forward. But we'll see. We'll see.
All right, guys. Well, if you guys enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe. It really helps the channel, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.